we enjoyed it.
I'm guessing we're ready. Not on. Hello, hello, yep. All right. Eric Cabrera is running a little late. And George, Councilmember George Jones will not be here today. He's traveling for his work. He's down in Florida, Orlando. So we'll do a roll call for who's here, please.
Tony Perry here.
Elborn here.
Jerry Good here.
John Gamelke here.
David Mijares here.
Rutherford here.
Art, can you please lead us?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda? Need to approve the minutes from the September 9th meeting. Does anybody have anything for that?
Perry motions to approve the minutes of September 9th.
Born seconds.
Jerry? Do we have to go through and approve it? Jerry?
I approve. Well,
Do a
Do a
vote,
vote.
yeah.
Yeah, do a vote.
Perry, yes.
Born votes yes.
Good, yes.
Gamelke, yes.
Mijares, yes.
Rutherford, yes.
All right. Any unfinished business? We're gonna wait on Tala. Mark did reach out to me, said he's running about 10 minutes late, but he will be here. So that moves us to Arden Weatherford.
Okay, we're revisiting the Bergstrom Park, I'll say reimagining, redesign, so to speak. And as we left it.
Mark, microphone?
What's
It's just not coming across.
Just wrote, get it a little closer to you.
As we discussed last month, I was suggesting we combine the parking in the nearby areas as part of our scope of this project to look at what we might be able to do. It seems to me there's some low hanging fruit on each side of this site. There's probably 20 parking spots behind the hardware store in the alley that could be paved and put into use fairly easily. And then there's also the back of the Vector parking lot, which is the city has a 99-year easement on the back half of that lot for access and parking, but you'd never know it driving by there. So simply by sprucing that up, it hasn't even been blacktop and lined for years, but just a little cleanup back there and signage will go a long way. And there's another 30 or 40 spots right there. So looking at the parking in the general neighborhood, in addition to what we might be able to do at Bergstrom Park, is kind of what I thought we'd talk about today. And as you can see from last month's meetings, I had said that I don't think we need a consultant to get where we would want to go. But I also understand that we would not be implementing this program. We're simply talking about funding it through future TIF tax dollars. So I thought I'd let Aaron give us a little, I'll say primer, or basically explain why a consultant would help set the table for this for city and staff. And if that doesn't sound ridiculous, I'm prepared to make a motion to help them pay for such a consultant, even though I'm on the record saying, oh, again, they might need a consultant even if we don't. So, Aaron, exactly what would the consultant do in this case for you? And you have some in mind, you've worked with some people in the past?
Thank you, yes. We would like to take a holistic approach when looking at Bergstrom Park, looking at parking, looking at that entire design down there. So we would like to bring in a consultant, for community engagement, to make sure that we get the community fully engaged and heard in this process. And they have excellent mechanisms to do that, much more than we would. And also, I know time was a big concern for a lot of you. You didn't want this to go years that we were looking at this. We just did a study of Meadowood. I think it took them 4 months from start to finish, from the minute that they started to the end of them giving us a product. So I think that concern we can probably address with them. There's no guarantee that we'll have the same consultant that we use for Meadowood, but we will put out bids. We've already started that process to look at who would be interested, and that's kind of where we're at right now.
So what's the main thing they bring to the table? The community outreach?
They bring the community outreach. They also bring the experts, so that we have all the right people in the right places there. So we can have the engineering, we can have the design, we can have that all set up at the front.
Okay, so some portion of this consulting would be some concept designs.
Absolutely.
And even engineering?
Yeah, we'll get renderings. They do have an engineer on their team, the people that we've used for Meadowood. So yes.
Okay, well, I wasn't expecting to get engineering. As part
Not,
of that.
probably not construction level, but first phase
It's
concept.
all design,
cost
yeah.
study, Yeah.
Okay, well, anybody got any other?
Is this
Questions?
running primarily through Cindy?
Yes.
Okay,
The Pratt board would lead it, with DDA and Historical Preservation Committee being key partners in it throughout the entire process.
and I'm just, kind of my thought is looking at, yes, it's the park, but it's kind of that centerpiece, but also looking at parking downtown and getting Karen involved from a, planning standpoint to
Absolutely.
do that.
I guess, Mr. Chair, from my perspective, I don't have the creativity to reimagine Bergstrom Park on my own, so I generally am against consultants as well, but I think the way the city has used it lately, I'm not averse to this approach. And I think we have a better shot of maybe not making some foibles of the past, what's called the round thing. Some people regard it as the SRT. I think it was good in concept, thinking that they would do concerts right by the highway, but that didn't work out very well. So I'm not averse to supporting the city in this as well. So I would in fact, and it's my understanding that the city believes this could be anywhere from 40 to 50,000. That's your
Correct.
projection. And would that be your high-end budget?
It is.
Okay, I think we have a precedent for this, and I would make a motion to approve a grant to the city of Woodland Park for 1/2 of the consulting engagement up to 25,000. So no more than 25,000. If the agreement comes back at 40, then we would provide 20. So 1/2 of that amount up to 25,000. So I would make that motion.
Born will second.
Do we have anybody else have any questions about it or any input on it? I have a question. On the consultant, do we get to actually go to them with some of our ideas and they take those into consideration, or are they the idea people and we just take what they give us?
No, you absolutely will get to bring ideas to them. For the Meadowood study, they had 2 open town halls so that all the public could come in and give their feedback. They had comment cards, they had online forum, and then they also had direct engagement with the boards that were involved. So that would be the same case with this
Okay.
one.
Okay.
Alright, is Bergstrom, is it part of the overlay district? I forgot.
No, it's not.
It's owned by the city, so I
Yeah,
don't think it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
I was
is
just
a
kinda-
city park, so I don't think it is included.
yeah, it's just, as to, we can have an opinion.
Correct.
So to
I
speak.
just want to know if we can throw out ideas, that's all.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just did, that's all I was asking.
yeah, no,
Because you may have some ideas, we all may have some different ideas of
Yeah.
what we want. Yeah, or would like to see. Ultimately, we just want what's best for the city. Do we take a vote on that?
Yeah,
And
Harry, yes.
Born, yes.
Good, yes.
Gamelki, yes.
Mihatis, yes.
Weatherford, yes.
Yeah, that passes. Mark, do you want to go ahead and come up now, please?
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
My apologies for being late. Since early this morning, working on some things. First of all, I want to say thank you for attending the groundbreaking. That was a couple of weeks ago. It went off well. The weather was perfect. Great donuts for the donut mill. Derek was unable to speak because of his voice. He was sick. So Nicole filled in and she did great and it was wonderful. So thank you for attending. Those of you that made it, thank you for coming to that. It was a big step, another threshold that we have crossed and we pressed forward. We are in the throes of wrapping up the SDA agreement for actual signature and execution. The exhibits have been sent in. I believe we're good there. I'll check in with Karen about that. And we're waiting on the completion bond that's required for the financial assurances. I hope to have that this week. So once we get all that, the SDA can be executed and we can put that document behind us and move forward. It's another great threshold step to cross. So we're pressing forward. You'll just see continued activity on the site and work, and we are getting close to winter. I think it was 33 degrees this morning at my house. And so we'll see how the winter goes and how construction goes. It's very dependent on those factors. So, but it looks promising. We'll be open next summer. May I ask a question? So that's my report, but I have a question. Any questions for me?
Foundation. When are you gonna start?
Jamming fast as we can. Great question, John. Within the next 30 days.
I think we heard that last song.
Well, yeah, we are in 30 days, aren't we? Yeah. This month, I hope, because we're now standing in October.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the photo opportunity, we're waiting.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's gonna be close, y'all.
Yeah.
I had a question about all this is clarification. I have no comment or agenda in this question. Bergstrom Park is the stakeholders in Bergstrom Park are the city and the Historical Society because they have buildings already on the property. Correct. So they're really the two stakeholders and the DDA. Okay. And then the general population, I get all that, but the ownership of the land is city, the buildings is Historical Society, and the DDA, it's within the DDA boundary.
Mhm.
Got it, but not in the overlay. Okay, cool. That's it. Any other questions?
anybody have any questions for Mark?
One quick, another encouragement, Arden, thank you for what you're doing about Bergstrom and parking and those conversations. It's good, it's timely, it's important. So thank you.
Any other comments on that? Tony, I believe you'd be up.
Yes, sir. So, boy, I think it was almost 2 years ago now, we had the discussion regarding what I call the Voss building, because I think the local historians refer to it as that with Mrs. Voss. Also known as the Martini Hut building, the 4, 5, 6 other things, the purple building, the blight, as Mr. Arden Weatherford referred to it a couple years ago. So I made my position clear in the past regarding, I'm a big free market, private property rights person. But I'm sitting here today. What we did was we gave and I'm gonna butcher his name, Andy Nguyen. Nguyen. I'm not saying it right, I'm sure. I have had lots of conversations with he, have met with he and his mom. They've had lots of family things over the years. I've left message, I had a conversation with him briefly, probably about a month and a half ago, but it kind of got no, I was inviting him up to come sit down, let us walk in the building with him and talk about kind of what they're thinking. He didn't follow through on that. I've left multiple messages over the last month, basically telling him that and it's just my position, I'm only one person on the board, has changed. My position now is that, we have given them enough time to respond and to communicate and to indicate and to show their what they're thinking about. That being said, I was at an event last night with the chamber, and it was reported that yesterday a realtor was showing some people in the building, which is, I guess, a good sign, but it doesn't change my position this morning that I would actually like to consider making a motion that the DDA supports the city moving forward with condemnation process. Only, obviously the city drives that. We're just making a recommendation. Maybe it puts some additional pressure on them. I'm not sure. I can't imagine it was a good visit yesterday, since we know that there's some sewage that's backed up in the building over the last 6 months and they didn't take care of it. But that being said, I still am hopeful that they will find some way to make it useful, but I would encourage them on several fronts. One, because the building has been essentially vacant for 2 years, they may be eligible, just like a few other buildings in town, for an enterprise zone tax credits. The key with the enterprise zone tax credits is that you have to apply for it prior to any work, any construction. And there's some quirky rules around it, but it's a straight tax credit. So there is some benefit there that I would push out to them, because I think they do pay attention to the paper. I think they are reading the paper, so hopefully they'll actually hear this. Would encourage them to get with the city and talk about, what would have to be fixed in that building, which I think it's going to trigger all kinds of new codes based on the amount of work that's needs to be done in the building. All kinds of new codes, setback issues, parking issues. I think they should quickly get with the city and explore that. And I would argue that if the DDA chooses to support the city in moving forward in this process, that obviously, given the applicant or the building owner up into the 11th hour to solve it, is encouraged. But bottom line is that it's more and more becoming the definition of blight, which is also part of our charter in the DDA. I believe there's 3 or 4 buildings in the community that could be put to work in the next 60 to 120 days, and that's going to be awesome for our downtown business district. But this is pretty front and center in our town and needs to be resolved. And, again, I'm not changing my position that it's their building, that they need to figure it out. And at the very least, they could have put some paint on the outside and spruced it up and kept the weeds down at the, we did it actually. Some of us paid for and did the work last year to clean up all the weeds outside of ownership, but we didn't do it this year. Again, I'm open to making a motion that the DDA support the city in moving forward with condemning the building if the city sees so fit. Cause I'm kind of done personally as a DDA member with, the patience of getting it resolved. So just my opinion. And I don't say that lightly, because I pushed back really hard last time on condemning it a few years ago. And again, my ideology hasn't changed, but their lack of action, their lack of taking it seriously, I think, hopefully this will encourage them to take action. Maybe they'll sell it to someone who can put it to work. I'm not sure. Again, there's a lot of people in this town that want to see it survive because of the emotional attachment to Mrs. Voss, and I've read all the history on that, and I totally get it. And we're a pretty big supporter of history in this community, but doesn't change the position that something has to happen there.
Yeah, any comments?
Born here, if a condemnation declaration is obtained, then what's the next step?
Well, maybe Aaron can speak to it better, but when I did the research several years ago, when some members were pushing for it, it's quite a process, and it truly is intended to still give the property owner an opportunity to resolve the issue. I believe it involves getting an appraisal, and then the city would have to pay fair value. Unfortunately for this party, the building has deteriorated, and I suspect they'll have a hard time getting their initial purchase price back at this point. They've let the building deteriorate that much, but there is a process that's quite intensive, and it takes time, just like anything, which it should. You know, if we're going to take back someone's private property, there should be a very methodical, careful process that gives many opportunities for that party to take care of the situation.
In the condemnation process, if it is granted, would that allow potentially the city to destroy that building, but yet give the dirt back to the current owner?
I don't know.
We would have to look into that. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, based on my perspective, if the city moves forward with condemnation, they would have to buy the property. And then I think the intent 2 years ago was to buy the property. Maybe the DDA participates, which is why I'm opining. And then there are grants out there that probably would help in the demolition of the building. And even some of my friends that are like Mr. Poot, who really wants to save that building. When I've challenged to say, can you come up with X dollars to really save this building? The answer is always no, we don't have the money, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, so I think the city would have to buy the property as part of the process, offering fair value, whatever that is, and then probably demo. I believe, based on looking at code, nothing could go there that would meet the current requirements. There's not enough setback, there's not enough parking, there's a lot of checklist things that would have to be overcome. So,
Yeah.
that's my belief.
Okay.
But again, the DDA has no authority to condemn. All I'm suggesting is that we support the city in that effort if they so choose. That's all we're
Well,
asking.
as you said, if the city chooses to,
Yes.
explain that process to me a little bit. Are you saying this would have to go to council, or can you say city staff or the city attorney, or how? So what you know about that process?
I think I would have to come back to our next meeting with an update.
Okay,
Has Woodland Park ever done anything like this before?
I'm not sure. We have looked at a number of grants to see if we can obtain funding to assist with this process. We have not had any success at this point, but the actual procedural process I've not looked into.
It's pretty serious.
It's
And,
very
and I do
serious.
think it's quite a bit of time.
it's serious, but look how long we've wasted.
I've been here,
Yes.
I've been up here since 2017 and I've not seen, so it's been 7 years that I know of that nothing's happened to it. I mean, if that's the bar, right?
Well, the good news for the property owner is that I think Mr. Vasilati's well, you know, it's gonna be a council will have to weigh in. I suspect it'll be very public. There will be some history people who want to talk about that. The lawyers will have to weigh in because it is a legal process. And so, again, all I'm suggesting is that, we as the DDA who are responsible for the downtown boundary district at this juncture, for, you know, part of our charter is beautification and support of keeping the downtown viable for the city. I'm just suggesting that we offer support to the city to explore that process. That's all. That's all we can do.
That's all you're asking for?
Yeah,
So
and I think it could be through a motion and vote, or it could be by consensus that we are in agreement that and maybe by vote, because it puts us on the record. I have no problem with putting my name on that, but you know, basically giving the city manager license to go through whatever process they need to go through to explore it. And maybe, again, I think Andy does read the paper. You know, we're very motivated to help them solve their problem, but they don't seem as motivated as we are. So.
Well, a couple of observations I've got. First, nothing gets things done like a deadline. And we haven't started the clock yet, even though we talked about it years ago. So we should, I think, get this in motion. What I'm going to suggest is maybe we appoint 2 people from this board to meet with the city sooner rather than later. I don't want to wait a month just to here's how it works. Let's get this going now. So maybe I would think maybe Tony from a banking perspective, and maybe David here to engineering, like, yeah, this building shot. And
Well,
bring a little perspective, but I think we ought to have some representation at a meeting and discuss what do we do next.
I guess respectfully disagree in the sense that, again, we have no legal standing to start any kind of processes. It has to be the city.
And meet with the city about how it starts.
Sure.
I mean, I would guess, Aaron, has this been discussed at all at council or anything? Is there an appetite for this, or is this kind of news to you?
Wouldn't say it's news because we have been looking at grants, but council has not given any consensus or direction on the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're not sure that has to go to council. Well, that's part of what we have to look into, right?
Correct. I need
Yeah.
to look into the process to determine what is required and how do we go about this.
And Arden, as far as, you know, gathering information and, you know, being a resource, I think Tony and I could do that, but it's really, they got to determine their appetite to pursue that and what the effort would
Yeah,
be.
that's my question. Who is they? So we got to figure that out.
Mhm.
It might just be staff and the city attorney.
I
Can
yeah, I
I-
suspect staff, city attorney with concurrence or support of the council, obviously, because it is a very public thing. I don't know. I think whatever the city has to do, I'm not gonna bring any value. I did do about 3 or 4 hours of research a few years ago. That's all I know. But you guys, any of us can do that research, so. It's, you know, the law is very clear on the process, I think, so.
I'm okay with waiting myself. I mean, it's something new for the city of Woodland Park, it's something new for us. It's pretty serious. I don't think it's something that we can just rush.
Well,
And even to bring it to the table, or even to bring it, even the fact that it's gonna be published now in the paper, I mean, I don't think Woodland Park's ever taken on something like this. I can understand why, and I can also understand the frustration and wanting to move it along. I'm all about moving it along. It takes a long time to get stuff done.
Yeah.
I
know a
think
lot
this
of
is a long process. I would even think this would be a years-long process. I don't see this as being something that can be done in a
No,
couple of
but you got to
months.
start the process.
Sure.
Get the clock running.
And I think
Then
Aaron-
something will happen and they'll sell the building, or somebody will do something. But right now, seems to be no, as Tony said, no
Nobody said what?
cooperation whatsoever.
Correct. No,
well,
that is.
what
that
we
is-
could do is do a motion and vote on supporting the city. But there's nothing, in my opinion, that the DDA could do to start the process, push the process, other than provide our support from the dais, because ultimately the city has to do their homework, engage the process, and see if there's an appetite for it by the council, because this will be very political. And then from there, but all we can do is make a recommendation or a motion to support the city if they choose to proceed. That's all we could do. So
Let's
I
do
I think
that.
any other meetings, any other, doesn't matter. I mean, we have no more voice than that. And so with that, I would make a motion that the DDA support the city, if it so chooses, to start the condemnation process on the building formerly known as the Martini Hut Boss Building.
I'd like a comment
Yes.
before.
Please.
Well, you go first, second, then comments.
Yeah, Lauren will second, so we go to comment, yeah.
All right, there, what exactly, you must have an idea what you want that to become. Is there
Oh,
a
anything better
reason
than
for
it is
your
now. I mean,
urgency?
you and I look at this thing every day. And, you couple that with some, there was some guy parked out behind there that I think was living in his car behind that building.
That's happening all over town.
Yeah, so
But,
these kind of things
well,
kind of breed on each other.
you know, at what point do we say, well, the Gorman building, okay? The Gorman auction building. I mean, that's a blight, you know, do we attack that next?
Well, we
The-
certainly could.
The antique store that's been
Yeah.
pretty much. I think we're going down a path that we shouldn't be on. And it's just, we all have property rights, and for somebody to come in and think that they know better than, I disagree with it.
Well, I don't know that it's, but you have to admit that that's a pretty poor looking building to be sitting at the light and looking at. I mean, even if somebody did some cosmetic work on the outside to make it look better until something happened, would be a big benefit, correct? And I
But
do
I
agree
don't
with
know
you,
why
because we've talked
everybody's-
about it. I do agree with you about these other buildings. I mean, I get what you're talking about. There would be, and we have talked about that, and I'm all about property rights too, but I'm also very respectful for those that are around me as well. And I want what we have to present well. That's just my perspective. I'm only speaking for myself. And I know that you care about your building too. I don't even if it wasn't there, wouldn't it be better than it being there? And I'm not advocating for it or against it, but to look at it, would you rather look at it or not look at it?
You
Well,
know,
not
I
just
have
that.
no issue with it, and
You know?
that's honest truth.
Yeah.
There's,
I have
I
an
don't
issue
think we
with it. You
need to
should
get
be against
excited
sport.
about
What's
something
that?
like that. It's not worth getting excited and taking somebody's property away from them.
It's
No,
not
it's
a
a tough
taking when
deal.
you pay them.
What?
That's part of the process, is establishing the value of it. And I believe one of the processes here is just establishing what constitutes blight, and that's very subjective. But in the cases like the Gorman building, yeah, that's a pretty bad building over there too. And don't think as many people are impacted by that because you don't see it every day. But it's hard to argue, and it's a bell-shaped world. It's not the nicest building in town, but it's probably one of the worst buildings in town, and it's right there at the intersection starting the downtown. So it would be hard to argue it's not blight. I don't know. I'd like to see somebody make that case. But unless we start the process and encourage the process to start, look what it's got us in 2 years. Nothing. Not even a coat of paint. We had to move that Connex.
Yeah, we moved the Connex, we put up a piece of plywood to cover and actually protect the building. We actually did weed eating over there. We paid for it, some of us in the community. And so I agree with you completely, Jerry. If you remember my arguments over the last 2 years, but there comes a point where they need to step up, and even if they did the bare minimum, it would be an improvement over what's been happening. And I think the building continues to deteriorate. And based on what I know of the building, there's also a hole in the roof, which is also making it even worse inside. on top of the sewage issue, on top of, and they just need to step up. And so all we're saying here is this motion is that this board, as a quasi-governmental entity of the city, is supporting the city if they choose to proceed with condemnation. I hope what happens is it shows up in the paper. They reach out to the city and say, hey, what do we need to do? What are our options? What can we do? I've already told them they may be eligible for enterprise zone credit, tax credit. That matters. They are eligible for some other things if they have a plan and if it makes sense and if they can actually do it. This is if you look at the footprint, to answer your question, Mr. Good, if this building is demolished, there's not much that could go there legally by code, period. So the only reason that building's there is because it's been there. If someone came in today to try to build a building on there that was functioning, I highly doubt that it would actually even get through the approval process or even close to the approval process. So all we're doing is giving our blessing, so to speak, to the city that based on our charter, what we're responsible for, we're communicating that we've done our best to try and help these parties, communicate with these parties. They've been unresponsive, and that's all we could do.
Yeah, well, it's a good point that, tell me if I'm wrong, but if a building has certain grandfathered rights to it, correct? You know, they if you take and use it for a like use that it was, you don't have to bring everything up to current code and all. And so I think that needs to, you would basically say nothing goes there by doing that, or can that person take and make the improvements to make it less of a blight, but it's still there.
My only concern, Mr. Good, is that based on our initial assessment, I've had multiple GCs look at it on the outside because we couldn't go in. I believe that the amount of work necessary, even if they have it as the same use, the amount of work necessary to rehab that building goes over the threshold, which triggers all these current code requirements kicking in. So they're in a catch-22. They're in a tough situation. They really are.
Let me weigh in on the grandfathered use, because I'm very familiar with that. I had one over in Woody Creek that I had to prove was a grandfathered use. The Thunderhead here in town, had I known about that grandfathered use, but it was too late when I learned of it. That was a restaurant bar up by my house. But a grandfathered use has to be maintained. You have to operate it and keep it going. And I don't know what it could even be 1 year, but maybe 2 years. But I would say the grandfathered uses on this property have been lost. If you don't maintain them, you lose them after a certain amount of time. Over in Woody Creek, I had to prove it was used every year just to keep my grandfathered use. I don't see any such activity here.
Yeah. And again, the good news for the DDA is we don't have to get involved legally. All we're doing, the motion that I just made, that it was seconded, is basically just saying that we support the city with moving forward if they so choose. And there's a lot of processes and there's a lot of rights that the property owner still has that have to be overcome, and a lot of things that would have to happen to actually affect this. But all we're saying is we think something has to happen. Period.
You vote or?
All right.
The thing that I might mention on this too is, as I recall back on some of the early readings that I had done on DDAs and URAs, that condemnation is one of the tools that they have to help cause and move forward the, let's say, the dissolution of blight. So other communities have used it quite lengthily in order to do certain developments.
Yeah, I don't
So
believe
we're not breaking ground. It's
Yeah.
brand new.
And I don't think it's built into, we don't have that in our tool set. So we as the DDA can't start the condemnation process, but blight is part of our charter that we're fighting against blight.
We can use it to move it forward. Now, we cannot condemn,
Right.
but we can use that as a motion, to go forward.
Yeah. No, yeah, there are some DDAs, because a few years ago I studied DDAs across the country quite extensively. That do have the actual tool where they could actually start the condemnation. They don't have to. They have been empowered to actually do the condemnation because of the blight issue.
Sure.
Our DDA is not constituted. The city has to do it. So you're right.
Yeah.
But we don't have that tool, and all we could do is make a recommendation or give the blessing, which is what we're doing here.
Tony, forgive me, will you please state the motion
Oh my
again,
gosh.
just briefly?
Can you?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
Mr. Perry motioned to support the city if they so choose to start the condemnation process on the building known as Voss Martini Hut Building.
Thank you, Michaela.
thank you.
Let's take a vote.
Perry, yes.
Born, yes.
Good, no.
Cabrera, yes.
Gamelki, yes,
Mijares, yes.
Weatherford, yes.
so it passes. That throws you a little bit more work, doesn't it, Aaron?
We'll get to work.
All right, thank you. All right, so next is, so I'd like to hammer out some details in this micro grant. And what I'm hoping to come away with today is something that we can take and then put together the application or the form so that the next meeting we can present something to this board so that we can approve something so we can actually get these grants going for people if they so choose to use them. So I've asked you guys for some ideas or think about it. And so hopefully we have some ideas of what we'd like to look, what we'd like to look. Should I just take off what I think, or do we go around the board, or how we'd like to do it?
Well, I guess the only statement I would like to make if we're going around the board, Horn, is I'll categorically state that Park State Bank will not apply. But in this process, I'd be happy to collate everyone's ideas and help come up with a construct that we can come back and look at to see if it makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You have any ideas, Mr. Bourne?
Nothing in particular, other than I'm certainly willing to look at this process and see if it is productive for the community.
Jerry, you have any ideas?
You know, not really. I would ask that maybe that the board members, their businesses, try to stay away from that.
I would say that if a board member has a business that could benefit from it, that they would recuse themselves from a vote of that. Because I want all the businesses to be, we are business owners, yes, but we are also DDA board members. And I don't want to be penalized for being a DDA. I'm not saying that I'm doing this for myself. I'm not waiting for the grants. We're doing all we can now. So I'm just saying, but there are people, if people want to apply, then I think they should apply.
You know, in the past, we had a pretty big issue with that TIF funding for a board member. And I just think for the appearance of doing the right thing, maybe we should consider not participating in these grants.
Well, I guess I will weigh in again as the counter. First of all, something you said, Mr. Gamelki, just now. We are all building owners, business owners in the DDA district. And it is weird that we sit on a board that makes financial decisions on tax monies gathered within the district that impacts all the businesses in the district and 5 other taxing districts, by the way, right? I think it's unrealistic. Why would then any of us sit on this board if we are hamstrung to do business. I get what you're saying from an appearance perspective, and I would argue that what happens in the past is not because there was an appearance, it's because there weren't clear guidelines, there wasn't clear guidance, there weren't clear expectations, there wasn't a clear process, and there wasn't an appropriate recusal when there was a true conflict of interest. Because think about it. If the attorney were here, again, not to bring up the conflict of interest thing again legally, but if we all are on the dais and we also have businesses in the district, it's unreasonable to expect that none of us can do business in the district because we sit on this board. And so what I would say is that's not the conflict of interest. Now, appearances do matter. But again, you solve the appearance issue by having very clear guidance, very not opaque, but very clear set of guidance, expectations. Everything's down out in the open. There are no behind the scenes executive meetings making decisions. We've done everything very visible to the public, and that's all we could do as a board. But it is unreasonable. For instance, I've already stated Park State Bank will not participate, and we never have, never will. We could have gotten a TIF deal in 2003 on our building. We didn't ask for one because we believed in making a commitment to the community and making that investment and showing that it was worth investing in the community. So that's our position. But I think it's unreasonable looking around at small businesses to say, well, because you're serving on the board, you're going to be penalized because of an appearance. And that's why I volunteered to work on setting up the construct to help minimize that conflict of interest or perceived conflict of interest. Because I am very motivated to see every building in the district. Mr. Good, I think you do an excellent job on your building. I think you take care of your property, and that's noticed and appreciated. I think Mr. Weatherford does the same thing. Mr. Gamelke clearly has invested in his building in the district. And so I'm saying that I'm not going to penalize any of you. I wouldn't want to penalize any of you, and it's not reasonable or appropriate to be penalized just because you choose to spend Tuesday mornings in extra time serving the community. So I disagree. How we solve it is with a good process, a good construct for how the process would work, and it's not going to be perfect. And I don't think we're talking about a lot of money here, but we want to, as a matter of fact, I'm going to argue that whatever we come up with, we have to get the city's concurrence that they're not going to take half the money and fees and things. So we'll be talking about that. Sorry.
That's a good point.
I mean, so, and I think, you know, why we could add value, I being representing my profession, we do construction very well. So accountability on checks and balances, on how the funds flow, when they flow, if we choose to do this grant, we can set up a very strong, tight process. But even though we have deselected ourselves as a participant, I would encourage everyone on this, including you, Mr. Good. There is something that you can do to improve our downtown, maybe even more than you've already done. And I think that's appropriate. You paid these tax monies just like everyone else in the district, period. So the bottom line is we need to, I think we're at another juncture in our economy and time, and a point in time where we need to do everything what we can to show our best foot forward. That's why I voted for the grant, because whatever is done in Bergstrom, again, I don't have the vision for it. That's not my superpower. I don't know how to make things pretty, but whatever it is needs to make a statement of, hey, welcome to Woodland Park, right? And so we need every quiver in the every arrow that we can to make that happen. So I'm just going to encourage that even if you're on the board, that you apply if it makes sense. If you can find a legitimate use based on whatever criteria we come up with, I encourage you to participate. So anyway.
I've got a couple of questions. One, John, when you said encourage people to apply. Apply for what?
So we're talking about, we're just throwing this out here, we're talking about $5,000 micro grants is what we're talking about. I've got some ideas. I don't know if it should be, should it be a business owner or a building owner? That's a question, right? Because sometimes people own the buildings, but they don't own the business inside the building. So we need to, and should it be a business that's already established and open, or should they at least have a license to do business? Not just like, hey, we're buying, you know. So we need to look at that. Also, I'm thinking, will the city waive fees? I'm not sure, because that could eat into it as well. And then also I propose that we would take the people that would be applying for the grants would come to us as a board and we would vote. They would, their contractor or whatever would give us the bid, we would look at it and we would vote whether we approve or disapprove. And then my idea would be, and then you get the work done. I've talked to Aaron already. If they were to get the work done, the city could pay quickly. So we could directly pay the contractor. We wouldn't even have to pay the business owner or the building owner. So it would, and so I think those are some things. People could use it for, say you want to do stucco, paint, signage, ADA compliance, maybe new doors, new windows, lighting. I don't, you know, those are just some ideas that people would do just to make the front. I don't think it should be interior. I think it should be
Facade
exterior.
improvement.
I think it should be to help the appearance of the building.
Or cited.
Siding.
Well, that sounds
Sure.
very similar in 2009, the Main Street makeover. I'll see what I can dig up out of the archives on that, the guidelines. That was a combination of a grant.
Mhm.
And then Park State didn't, was involved in that, but not for their building, but if I recall, you offered people loans of, I think it was like 2.5% loan for any
40 years.
yeah, it was a screaming good deal. You would one, and that was a time that was tough here. 09-10 was pretty bleak real estate, but that was very successful. I think almost everybody did something with that. Let me see what I can dig up on that, but I was curious as to what you were thinking on the process, and limiting it to facades is a good idea.
We threw around the loan idea. We also threw around, is it a matching grant, you know, like they pitch in some, and I don't necessarily really want that, because I think that will limit some people from coming to us. Maybe they don't have $3,000 to throw in, right? And then we match them $3,000. That might not be, I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm just saying, I don't want to stop people from being able to use this. Now, we can pay up to $5,000. Maybe they can pitch in $5,000. So now they're getting dollar for dollar. That would be between them, but I don't want to put that stipulation on them unless the board thinks different. These are just my ideas. Does anybody else have any ideas?
I think a good place to start would be if we get a clear outline of what blight is. And then make these items, you know, this grant used to help bring that stuff up. I think that would be a good foundation. And if there's any extras that we believe we should add on outside of that, because that's one of our biggest issues is blighted buildings. And this is improvements.
I don't know that I'm thinking about blight. Could be that. I don't think I'm directly going towards the buildings that are blighted.
Oh, no, I'm not saying going towards buildings that are blighted. If we took yours and we looked at what's the outline of blight? What is our true definition? What are those issues that we're seeing? And if you wanted to improve your building with those issues first to prevent the blightedness.
I don't know.
So I'm trying to discern what you just said, Mr. Chair. So I think one of the things that stood out was, you know, we're not talking a huge amount of money. So,
Correct.
but I agree with, has to be outward facing, which means it has to overall improve the appearance of the downtown corridor, whatever that is. I think that has to be one of the big requirements. And I don't know that we have to define it because we're going to ask the applicant to come show us the project. with a very small project budget, you know, probably several items on that budget, and then we can opine whether it's gonna add to the overall improvement of the district or not. It may become as simple as that. I think Blight was pointed out earlier that that's a very, very subjective thing. And so we have to be
Okay.
careful with that. It's not very clear, but what happened in 2009 and, you know, there were 22 business/building owners who participated, and I think it gave us a refresh, if you will, and I think it gave the business district kind of a vitamin B12 shot of, okay, we're in tough times right now. We feel better, we look better, let's survive. I don't think we're there yet in that kind of time frame, obviously, but I think it's getting tight out there. I think our small businesses are under pressure, period. Our consumers are under pressure. So I think, you know, outward appearance, I think, I can put some very simple guidelines based on our construction kind of processes we use at the bank. We do a ton of construction loans, and the whole, show me what you're gonna do it, we verify it, then we reimburse, right? That kind of
Yes.
process makes sense with the city's
Yeah.
involvement. So we could throw some outline for that together for you. And I think all the stuff you said, you know, we can't imagine what each business owner can dream of, but we can put some general guidelines of, you know, exterior lighting, signage, you know, we could put a list of what could be. And I think I have a lot of confidence in these business owners. They know better. If we tell them, hey, you can potentially get this grant if you come show us how you're gonna improve the downtown district with the appearance of your building. Right, period.
Yes, yes.
Let's see what they bring to us. I think they probably will have you have a better idea on your buildings.
Yes,
Eric, you have a good idea on your building. And I don't think it's necessarily, well, I think the building owners/businesses are intertwined. And so that requirement doesn't matter to me, as
Okay.
long as it improves the building in the district. Obviously, if a person's leasing, they have to get the concurrence of the building owner to participate. And to your point, they may see it as an opportunity of doing $20,000 worth of improvements when they know that they're getting a $5,000 to help offset that, possibly, right?
yes.
And you're right, we do have to figure out, if they come and they have $3,000 worth of improvements, but they have no matching money. I mean, I think we have to think about that too. Because if they can clearly make the case that that will improve the downtown district, I wouldn't be averse to looking at that personally. So I think, anything else to add to this list? Because I think we could put together and there's a lot of examples out there with DDA micro grants and city micro grants that we can kind of leverage off of and come up with something pretty quickly in terms of a construct that you can send out to all of us to consider for the next meeting,
That'd be great.
so that we don't have a 12-month process on
Can we
figuring
do-
something out.
Are you on, do you have anything to add to that, Aaron?
No, but we can help put something together.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, and I will, Mr. Vassalotti wasn't here in 2009, but 2009 was amazing because I personally think it was a God thing, but for the city, CDOT, the county at that time was the inspecting authority, the businesses, even some of the citizens that stepped up to really improve and give a facelift to the downtown was a cool thing. And one of the things the city did do was run interference to minimize the bureaucracy, to minimize any of the fees kind of involved, right? So depending on what comes out of it, we could figure out a construct where the city can help as well. So we'll challenge you once we figure out that construct.
Guys, how much money are you thinking is a micro?
5,000.
Well, I suggest that we go to the Boss Building and.
They're open, so they are open to apply for that. Yes. they
Yeah,
are.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that.
Now, we also, and that was one of the things that was one of my questions. Do we make sure that the building is in good standing already and has a functioning business in it.
Mm.
That was one of the things I brought up. I don't know. Is that something that we look at? We say, you gotta have a business license, you gotta be up and running, or do we open it up to say, you're a startup? Are you gonna, I don't know.
See,
I mean, I'm open, and I agree with you, Jerry. I thought maybe they should be able to come to us for that, yes.
yeah, so my 2 cents on that is stepping up at the bigger picture is the overall appearance of the downtown district. And so I would agree with Mr. Good that they would be eligible.
Yes,
But I would hope that they do all the rest of their homework to make sure that putting money on the outside is a worthwhile investment of their time and money and our money, right? So
yes.
in that
And it-
respect, we need to know what's happening,
And
what the
again,
plans are.
when they come to us and we vote on it as a board, then we can look at those things as well to see if it is gonna add value to the community, right? I mean, that gives us an opportunity to say yes or no and because I do think that we should vote on it. Does everybody agree on that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Project by project,
As
absolutely.
each one comes to us. So if we have 3 people on one day that come to us, that's what we'll do. And do you like the idea, Jerry? Like the general idea?
Yeah, I do, but I really struggle with, you know, who it's offered to. I think there could be issues if we started, taking the money.
Well, we as a board get to.
Well, every building in the district should be eligible. Yeah.
I'm just, it's a concern.
Sure.
Mhm.
So we have checked with our lawyer and we can do this. We have checked with the city and we can do this. So there's nothing legally that stops us. It's just trying to work out the details.
Hmm.
And then we will have the city overseeing it and we also have our lawyer looking at it to make sure that we're above board with it all.
And again, it's an actual, for DDAs that function properly across the country, it's another tool in their tool chest that they use to help accomplish their mission. So it's not unusual. Well, I'll put together some basic construct if you want me to. I'll do
That'd be
that
great.
homework.
Thank you.
Um,
Can we have something can you and I get together before the next meeting so that we can present something at the next meeting for us to look?
well, I think we have enough ingredients to throw together something in the next week that you could push out, and then the one-on-one you can get feedback from each member.
Okay.
Just to improve it, adapt it, modify it, whatever you want. I think we have enough info. Then we'll get with Mr. Vassalotti to see if he has any additional ideas that he thinks of, but I think we could get something out in the next week or so.
Like sound of?
Again, a couple of things I want to on this issue is, there are buildings eligible for that enterprise zone tax credit, so we need to get that word out. I believe there's gonna be multiple buildings in our district that are gonna come online in the next 120 days, which is exciting. And so, hopefully if those parties are out there listening, they will take advantage of this if it makes sense to them, so.
That's all I got on that, unless anybody else has something to add to that.
Well, I just think we're on the right track, that we get a document that kind of defines the program and then advertise it and then look at each project individually. But I think getting a document that defines our intent is where we need to go next.
Thank you, everybody.
I guess one more idea to throw out for us to consider is setting a deadline on the applications and then a expectation of completion time.
Considering we're coming into winter, I wondered about a
Mhm.
deadline. I mean, kind of weather dependent on some of the things they might want to tackle.
Mhm.
So
Wait and see.
I don't know. There are some days up here where you can do some exterior work in the winter, but there are a lot of days that you cannot. So. And we're kind of late in the year getting this going. Would we want to put a deadline on it? Is there an appetite for that? Would you guys think that?
I don't know so much a deadline for starting, but once the agreement is made, a deadline for completion.
Completion. Oh, that's fair.
So, John, it would just be exterior.
Yes. And exterior can't, you know, say a building needs to come up to ADA compliance, exterior is a doorway, right? I mean, cause it costs us $8,000 to do our doorway when we had to do ADA compliance. I mean, that would be something towards it, so that could be exterior / interior, just a little bit right there. But yeah, I would believe it would be the exterior of the building to help it look better from the outside.
And I would argue we could piggyback this program with an informational campaign from this board. Communicating to the other building owners in the district to put some TLC into their buildings. You know, again, I applaud Mr. Good, Mr. Gamelke. You've done some work on your building that, you know, even if they clear up their weeds and they do some little things around the building, it adds value to the overall appearance. And so I think we need to encourage them to the extent possible beyond the grant, a potential grant, is to put some more TLC into their buildings and behind their buildings. We have some that are in pretty disarray right now that, you know, just a couple hours on a Saturday would take care of.
I want to make a point that we play off rustic very liberally at my
Of what?
rustic, the
Yeah,
term rustic.
yeah,
So
Sure.
it's designed that way.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's your aesthetics, and it looks good. Nobody here is saying there's, I guess, yeah.
No, I think you take pride in your building, Jerry. It's very clear and it's very purposeful and you do it that fits your business. So I applaud that. Irrespective of our other differences, there's a lot of things about how you do your business, how you take care of your property that's greatly appreciated as another business owner in the community.
Thanks. Do you have anything to add, Debbie, to this? Any ideas?
Maybe always has ideas.
Well, we've spoken a little bit about revolving loan, and I wasn't here at your last meeting, so I hear there's no appetite for that. When I think about this program and I think about our community and how small we are, there are a couple of things that cross my mind when those applications come into use. So to make it fair, because as Mr. Perry said, everybody sitting up there has a buy-in to a building or owns a building, and you should be eligible for this. So maybe looking at when the application comes in, make it blind so that you're not aware of who the owner is in that respect, and or having another group of people that look at it, that make that decision other than you. So that there's the appearance of transparency from you all. So again, I don't feel that you should be penalized because you've chosen to serve on this board. You're all great residents and input into the community. So I know we do this with the Workforce Center. When we give out grants, we do a blind judging. So we have no idea who the applicant is, and we look at what they've submitted and do they meet the criteria. And then it's brought together from a group of people and it's scored, and then we find out who they are after it's scored. So just a thought.
Thank you.
I do like your idea of an alternate group that makes the recommendations. I think the blind would be difficult because each building, it could become pretty easily apparent who the building is, frankly. But I do love that idea that we should contemplate. I think that would help add to a good process. So
Interesting. I do like that idea too. Anybody else have any input on this?
Nope.
All right. I don't see any public comment regarding new business. Have none. Tony?
treasurer's report, we had no bills this month. I'm working to make contact with the Trail Ridge Apartment folks because we know that that's the final TIF payment we'll have to make for the year, and I'm going to try to get that done in the next couple of weeks with them. Also, Mr. Vasilati and the city have provided us with some information regarding our bonds with Vectra. And they're gonna be getting us some debt service information in short order. What I'm trying to do, as I've communicated before, is put together a pro forma through the end of life of the DDA, which is 2032, I believe. Basically showing what our debt service is going to be through that period. We know that with the new state law, our mills will go down on commercial buildings, which is awesome. I think 4 mills matters in the big picture. From a DDA perspective, the 4 mills tats going down just also decreased proportionally the TIF going out, right? So with the mills going down, then paying less taxes, they'll also get less TIF reimbursement for those agreements that they signed. So we have to make sure we pay off the bonds before the DDA. I believe the DDA will be shut down. I do. It can be extended, but I don't see a current appetite for the council, but who knows? But we need to plan like it's going to be shut down. And if they extend it, then the DDA will be healthier because debt's paid off, agreements have been met. But the other thing the pro forma will reveal is we do have reserve monies that keep building every year that we can participate in once they decide the city what Bergstrom Park's going to look like. We can play in that sandbox in the terms of a grant to the city. Okay. I know also they're looking at, I heard talking about parking around the area or whatever. If there's something that makes sense, we can play in that with respect to a grant to the city. And I believe there will be some buildings that will be coming online. I don't know if they're going to apply for a TIF agreement, but we need to understand what we can offer in that respect, given that our timeline is diminishing, right? We're less than 10 years away from shutdown, and the typical TIF agreement has been 10 years. So obviously we're not going to be offering that. If someone does approach us, if we have an appetite, I don't know. So by the November meeting, we'll have the pro forma, hopefully ahead of time, so we could shoot it out to all the board members so that you have time to digest it and to understand it, and then I'll explain it. It's not that complicated, but there are some moving parts we need to make sure of. So, and everything is always vetted with the city because, again, I don't pretend to be an accountant. Don't want to be.
Thank you, Tony. Any board members have any reports? We have nothing from the city attorney. And I have nothing except to say thank you very much for helping with this grant idea. I think it wasn't my idea initially, but I was given it to run with. And I'm looking forward to seeing what we can get going for the city of Woodland Park. And thanks for the opportunity. And thank you, Aaron, for helping with this as well. That's all I have. I say does anybody have anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Adjourn. Thank you.